Hello everyone, it's Fungo here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be showing you how to make a simulator map for your simulator games, like the one you see on screen here. Throughout this tutorial I will teach you how to build cell shops and buildings for your map like you see here, pathways, how to get checkered grounds, and how to make tree meshes like you see on screen. So make sure to stay until the end, and leave a thumbs up if you enjoy. Let's get right into the video.
Deep in Tennessee with my brothers from the 3, we quick to click and break the peace. No respect for what they.
Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is delete the base plate that you have when you first open Studio. I'm then going to insert a new part. This is going to be the ground for our simulator map. I am going to go to this part's properties, and I'm going to make it about 250 by 1 by 250. I'll make this slightly larger, 300 by 1 by 300. Or, remember, this depends on whatever size you want your map to be. For me, for the first part, I'm gonna do... that seems like a good size for the first area. Next thing you're gonna want to do is go to this part's material and change it to smooth plastic. Then change the color to a light green. I think I like that one. Or maybe this one. Next you're going to open your toolbox, go to images, and just search for checkered. Because we want to get a checkered pattern that we can put onto a texture inside of our base plate. Or ground piece. So I'm going to take this one right here. I'm going to go into the part, copy the ID, then I'm going to insert a texture into our part, delete the decal, then paste the image ID into the texture. As you can see, we now have this checkered pattern on the ground. Obviously this is a lot smaller than I want it to be. I'm going to change it to about 35 by 35. Or I'm going to do 15 by 15. I'm going to then change my transparency to 0.9. And then the checkered color will change with the color of our part. So if this was a desert, I could change it to like a deserty color and the checkered pattern will still be there. I can leave it green and our checkered pattern will still be there as well. So once we have our ground done, I'm going to click this lock button at the top of our screen and just lock the ground so that we won't accidentally click it and drag it around when we are working with the other parts of our map. So the next thing you are going to want is mountains going around your map. So, just for the sake of time, since this is a tutorial, I'm going to go search for cartoon mountain in the toolbox. There will be a model that pops up called simulator mountain. This is used in a lot of simulators, they all look the same. I highly do not suggest using free models in your games. It's not good to use them. I never use them in my actual games. This is just for the sake of time, since this is a tutorial, and I'm not a mesh maker, so we are going to be using this. If you want to make your own, you can go into Blender and make your own. I will be showing you how to make your own trees in this tutorial. However, we are just going to use this mountain. So next, I'm just going to insert. I'm going to go to plugins, go to build rig, and then build an R15 rig, and place them on the ground. This is just for size reference. So as you can see, there is the character compared to how big our map is. I'm actually going to want the map to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to change this down to 250 by 1 by 250. And then going to drag the mountain size down quite a bit, just slightly into the ground. That seems like a good size for our mountains. Now I'm just going to move these all around the map. I'm going to speed this part up, just scale them, move them, and rotate them all around your map until you have a barrier made. So now, as you can see, we have mountains placed around our map, acting as a barrier so the players cannot escape from the map. I believe, yeah, these are anchored by default, but make sure everything is anchored. I don't think we anchored our base plate part when I inserted it. No, make sure you click anchor on your ground piece. So just make sure everything you have here is anchored. So right now, before we move to the next step, I'm going to start naming and grouping some stuff. So I'm going to name this part ground. I'm going to select all of the mountains and group them. And then just name this group mountains. As you can see, it's a lot cleaner in our Explorer now. Make sure you also go to model and insert a spawn point so that the player has somewhere to spawn, and make sure they spawn in the actual map. I'm just going to put this in the center. I'm going to set the transparency to 1, delete the decal, and then set can collide to false. So now it'll be as if it's not there when the players are playing the game, it's just there to spawn them. Should be centered about there. So I'm going to click test right now just to walk around our map to see how the sizing is and how it looks so far. So as you can see, we are now spawned into the game, and we can zoom out and walk around our map. I like the way this looks. The mountains look like they're a good size. The tiles may be slightly too large, but nothing too much. I think I might slightly lower the tile size. I think they're 15 by 15s right now, so I'm going to change those to 10 by 10s and see how those look. So I'm just going to go into my ground texture. 10 by 10 instead. Yeah, I think that's better. So this is looking pretty plain right now. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is add some pathways here. So I'm just going to make sure this is centered quickly. I'm going to copy the position of the ground, paste it into the position of the spawn location, and then just make sure it's dragged above the ground. There we go. I'm going to lock this as well so I don't accidentally select it. So now for pathways. I'm going to insert a pathway. Alright, part. Change the material to smooth plastic and make this a light brown, pinecone brown. I'm going to make this extremely short so it barely comes off of the ground. And then widen it. We can bring our character model over here for reference. So we could say that seems like a pretty good size. Now I'm just going to make this go all the way to the end here. Or I'll make this slightly wider. Do that. And I'm going to duplicate this and rotate it so it's like crossways going in every direction, with the spawn point in the center. This needs to be slightly moved this way. There you go. Now we have these small pathways going along the ground. We can put different buildings in the different areas after, but first we're going to make trees. So you're going to want to make sure you have Blender downloaded. I'll leave a link to download Blender in the description because this is where we're going to make our tree meshes right now, so that we can have our own custom trees in the game. So once you're in Blender, you're going to want to press Shift and A at the same time. Then go to Mesh and insert a cylinder. Then in the bottom left you want to click this little arrow next to Add Cylinder and lower the number of vertexes. I'm going to set mine to about 10. 10 is a good number. I'm then going to press S to go into scaling mode, and then Z to scale it on its vertical axis. Gonna scale it down slightly. So once you have this good shape for our trunk, I'm gonna press Shift A again, mesh, and then cone. I am once again gonna lower the vertices down to, we'll say 8 for this. Yes, so for the actual tree, the pine tree pieces, we will do 8 vertices. Obviously this is whatever you want it to be. You can do however many vertices you want. This is just what I think looks good. Scale this one up, move it down, then you're going to press Shift and D at the same time, and then click, duplicate it, drag up, then press S, scale down, slightly, then Shift D, click again, drag up, scale down. And as you can see, we now have a nice meshed pine tree here. So first thing you want to do is click your trunk and press delete, because we're going to need to export the leaves in the trunk separately so we can color them once we're in Studio. So once you have just your leaves, you're going to click File, Export, .obj, wavefront.obj. Then you need to find where you want to export these to. So I have a folder in my desktop where I'm going to export them to, Blender model files. I'm going to make a new folder and call it tutorials. New folder, I'm going to call the folder pine tree. And then name this top piece. Then export obj. Once you've exported the top piece, you're going to press Ctrl Z to undo. And then you're going to delete all the leaves by clicking and holding Shift at the same time. And then click delete. Now File, Export, wavefront.obj, and name this trunk. Make sure you put it in the same folder as you put your top piece. So now that we've exported our tree, we're going to want to put this tree in ROBLOX Studio. As you can see, if you zoom out too far, you can see the texture through that. That's just because of how thin it is. If you wanted to, you could scale it up slightly, but that shouldn't be an issue once you're actually in game. I believe that's just in Studio. So we're going to do, click the plus icon next to workspace, and then search for a mesh part. Insert that. Then where it says mesh ID, you're going to click the little folder icon with the green arrow, and then find where you saved your OBJ files. Once you found that, you're going to insert your trunk. When this pops up, click yes, and then click F to focus in on where it is. Now you're going to duplicate this, click the folder with the green arrow again, and this time insert the top piece. Click yes again, and now select them both and drag them up. So as you can see, we now have our pine tree in the game. I'm going to change the material on both of these to smooth plastic, and then color them how I want them to be colored. So I'm going to make this bright green, and then make the trunk brown. I'm going to group these. I think this is slightly too small, so I'm just going to size it up a little bit there. Size it down a bit. I want the top to be a little bit higher compared to the trunk, so I'm just going to go like that. There we go, I think that looks good now. Now what you can do is just name this pine tree. Now I'm going to put these all around the map. I'll speed this up and I'll be back when I'm done putting them around. So as you can see, we now have trees in 2 of our squares. I only put them in 2 for now because the other 2 are where I'm going to put some of the buildings once we make the buildings, which is what we're going to do right now. So for a simulator map, most simulators you're going to want at least 2 sections, a shop and a cell building. So the first thing I'm going to do is build our cell building. That's going to go over here. So I'm going to insert a new part. I'm going to color this a light gray and make it smooth plastic. I'm going to bring my dummy towards the shop for size reference. I'm going to make this larger. I'm just going to change my snap to grid to a 1 stud, or half a stud right now to make building this easier. So I want the building to be about that wide and go about that far back. That seems fair. Then I'm going to lower this down a little bit, or we'll keep that at 1 stud. Next I'm going to duplicate that part and bring it in half a stud in every direction. So just the smallest amount you can move it. I'm then going to drag this up. I'm going to color this a greeny color since this is going to be our cell shop. Drag it up higher. That looks like a good height for it. Next, I'm going to duplicate this gray part and drag this to the top. Then what I can do is I'm going to move this whole building right up to the sidewalk. Maybe slightly farther back. That seems good. I'm going to move this out. Next I'm going to want to build a door. So I'm going to copy this gray part, scale it over here. This is the door frame we are making right now. Bring him over here so we can look at the door frame size reference. Keep in mind we're going to want to move him up a bit because I'm going to add a stair. Then I can duplicate this, move it to the other side of him. That seems fair. Duplicate this, drag it up, and connect it. Next, I'm going to duplicate this, move it over so it fills the door frame, and I'm going to change the color to a pinecone brown color. I'm going to change my move stud to 0.25 just so that I can make the door go in a bit and then change it back to 0.5. So as you can see, this door isn't centered right now, so I'm just going to select all the door pieces and try and move it right there to the center. So we now have a door for our building as well. I'm just going to rotate this really quickly because the shadow is making it look weird when I'm building it. See, that looks a bit better. So now we need a step down here so that the players can get to the door height. So I'll duplicate the gray piece, drag it out, just drag it to about the size of the door, then like that. There we go. Next, this is missing something, so we're going to add some windows onto this. So I'm just going to duplicate this, the door frame, and drag it over, drag it up. I'm then going to change the move stud back to 0.25 because window frames obviously don't come off your door that much. So I'm going to drag it down like that. So as you can see now, it'll look like that. We're going to We don't want the windows this big either, or at least I don't, you might. I'm gonna make them slightly smaller, say about that long. That wide? That seems like a good amount. Duplicate this side piece and move it over. Duplicate the top piece, move it down. Move all of this down. Center it. Now we're gonna want the actual glass looking piece. Or we're gonna add a little cross in the center of the window. Like that. And the next thing I need is the glass piece, so I'm gonna duplicate one of these, change this to point 1, and drag it down there to whatever size you want. I'm gonna have mine like that. Then I will change the color to a light blue. And there we go. So now I'm just gonna group all these parts together so the window is 1. Change my movement back to 0.5. Group them. Duplicate the window. And move one over to the other side too. So now we still need one more thing. We want it to say "sell" on top of the building. So I'm going to go to my toolbox and search for 3D letters. Wait for this to load. We can just pick one. Or we're going to look through here for a font that we want. Say I wanted to use this font. You just click on the model and it will import all the letters into your studio. Or no, not that font. That doesn't look how I thought it was. We'll use this font. The Freshman font, I like it. It's a nice, bold kind of font. I'm going to ungroup this. I'm going to duplicate the letters I need to write "sell." S-E-L. Control D and drag them out. Then I will just put them next to each other. Obviously we're going to need 2 L's. Like that. Then I am just going to color these all bright green. And I'm going to place them onto the roof of our cell shop. Also, I'm going to make sure they are smooth plastic because they are set to plastic by default. Make sure that's about centered. As you can see, this is now our cell building finished. I'm just going to go ahead and group this. Rotate it to be facing the pathway. Or we're going to put them over here. I'm going to have one go there. Now I'm going to need to duplicate this pathway. Have it so that it goes up to the door. As you can see, that's a bit off centered, so I'm going to change it to 0.25 studs so we can get it centered. There we go. Now I'm going to scale it down so that it matches up. Scale it this way. Match up with this. Next we need the shop building. So I'm just going to duplicate this and move it over here. And then going to ungroup the cell shop or cell building. I'm going to color it, say blue. I'm going to choose. Delete the cell letters. Then I will go over to our letters again and copy the ones we need. So S H O P duplicate those and bring them down here. I will color them all. And now place the letters where they need to be. So as you can see, that looks about right for our shop now. Maybe move these slightly closer. So we're done using these letters now, so we can just select them all and delete them. We'll then bring these letters over to our shop building. And then place them on top of the roof like we did for the cell. Sure it's centered. Slightly further back. And there we go. Now we can group the shop. So, since we ended up not putting anything in this square, I am just going to put more trees here. However, if you wanted multiple buildings, like say your game had a backpack shop as well, or a VIP shop, or a rebirth portal, you can put it over in that square. Once again, this is a map building tutorial. This is just a guide to what you should do. However, with maps, you can make it look however you want to. This is just a guide on what I do. So, okay, so once you do this, and you have your 2 buildings done, that's pretty much it for your map. I don't think I anchored when I was building, so you're going to want to make sure everything in your map is properly anchored. Then I'm just going to go ahead and group the sections of trees all together, so like all of these trees I'll group. All of these trees I'll group together. And all of these trees I'll group together. I'm then going to just go ahead and name all these models pine trees. Make sure the mountains model is named, or wait, yeah, go ahead and name this. Well, those are the shops, so name all the pine trees model pine trees. Name the last one pine trees. I'm gonna name the cell shop cell, and then name this building shop. Then I'm gonna go into my workspace, insert a folder, and then select all of these map pieces and move them into the folder. These are our pathway parts. Make sure these are also in the map folder. I'm gonna name this folder map, and then we are finished. Now if I click to play, we can take a look at our simulator map we just built and walk around it. Obviously nothing is scripted, however soon I will be releasing a simulator scripting tutorial series, so then you will have that to go with this video so you can have a fully functional simulator. So as you can see, now that we're spawned in, we can take a look around our map. The cell shop is over here. Here you would have like a ring that you walk into to sell all your stuff. A ring that you walk in to open the shop GUI. But that's pretty much it. It's just a small, simple simulator map. I hope you all enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave any comments on how I can improve my videos, what other types of videos you would like to see, or just any general comments you have. That's it for this one, and I'll see you all next time.